So good evening, everyone. I'm just going to start with a brief, I suppose, intro on Carbery, I suppose, and who Carbery is. So we're headquartered down in West Cork, in Ballyleen. You can see our factory there in the background. I suppose we're kind of working three main areas: nutritional ingredients, flavors through our synergy business, and I suppose we're probably best known for cheese. Dubliner cheese would be one of our flagship products. So founded 58 years ago by the four West Cork co-ops, and I'm a little side on that in a minute. There's 10 facilities now globally, and I've a map on that. Sales in 2021 were north of $500 million. We haven't got our 22 accounts yet, but we're hoping to be above that. And I suppose, yeah, it's a global company now, selling in over 50 international markets. So just around the world, kind of these, and this hasn't come out too well actually, this map, but you can see, I suppose, that there's a strong presence in the US with the Synergy Flavors business. There's also a plant in Sao Paulo in Brazil, Trieste in Italy, High Wycombe, UK, Bangkok, Jakarta, Shanghai. They're all the Synergy Flavors business. And the headquarters is in Ballyleen in West Cork, which is basically our dairy business and our ingredients business. So that gives you a feel, I suppose, for the business. Just in terms of, I suppose, again, where we've come from and our roots. So again, that cooperative ethos is very, very important to us. So we're owned by four West Cork co-ops. You can see them there listed: Bandon, Barry Road, Green and Savard. 1,220 farmers, dairy farmers that supply those co-ops ultimately own Carbery. And I suppose just in terms of catchment, just to give you a feel for it, if you took a straight line from Kinsale to Castletownbere, everything south of that essentially is the Carbery catchment. So it's real dairy country. And I suppose that infographic on the left, just put that in, I suppose, to kind of show how circular, I suppose, the cooperative movement is. And we're part of, a bigger circle. There's a circle, I guess, within Carbery, but it's part of a much bigger circle, which involves the local communities, the vets, Board Beer involved there, Teagasc, co-op advisors, co-op boards, etc., etc. So it's, I think, a good example, I suppose, of the circular economy in action. So just moving on, I suppose, to kind of give you a feel for some of the stuff that we've been involved in, which I think are pretty good examples of the circular economy. I suppose one project which has got a good bit of airplay in the last while is a project called Farm Zero C. And this is an ambitious project. The plan here is to develop a climate neutral dairy farm at our demonstrator farm in Shannock in West Cork, and to do that by 2027. So it's very ambitious. It all started basically with a conversation back in tis almost 3.5 years ago, nearly 4 years ago now, with Professor Kevin O'Connor in Bioeconomy. Kevin was doing some projects for us at the time, and SFI made an approach to Kevin about, a challenge that they were putting together, a zero emissions challenge, and he asked, was there any ideas in the dairy space? And we just said, look, the holy grail for us would be a carbon neutral dairy farm. And Kevin just asked, was it doable? And I suppose to my knowledge, no one had really tried it at scale, certainly. And within a week, we kind of put together a project team, and it just took off from there. And ultimately, we actually won. So we got seed funding initially. We went through a number of phases. We got €200,000 for the seed phase funding, and we ultimately won the Zero Emissions Challenge, which was, transformational, I suppose, for the project. And we got €2 million in funding for that. And that really, I suppose, has put us on the journey we're on. There's 6 distinct work packages within the project, so you can see them there. Soil health is a very, very important area for us, and soil carbon. We have a whole work package dedicated to biodiversity. And I should say as well, I suppose, the ambition for the project kind of pivoted about 6 months into it, because we realized, carbon neutral actually was too narrow. If we want to be truly, I suppose, sustainable, and if we want to be serious about the circular economy, we needed to look at a climate neutral ambition. And the difference there, I suppose, is you're looking at things like water quality, which is very, very important, air quality, biodiversity, etc. So LCA's life cycle analysis, and we have a brilliant guy working that called Alejandro Vergara. Methane abatement, of course, massive. That's over half the GHG issue on farm is methane. Renewable energy, very important, and I suppose there's a bit. The business case is very important also, because you know we could put in lots and lots of kit into the farm and make it, you know, carbon or climate neutral, but if it's not financially viable and if it can't be replicated on any standard farm, you know, that defeats the purpose. So our partners, I mentioned Bioeconomy, MTU, big part of it through James Gaffey, who's leading the renewables piece. Teagasc, of course, and Teagasc had a presence in the farm going back to 2011. UCD through Alejandro and Vergara on the LCA piece. Trinity College would be Jane Stout and Keen White on the biodiversity. And Grassa would be a Dutch partner who helped us with grass biorefining, and I've got a slide in that coming up as well. So it's all happening in Shannock Farm. This was a farm acquired by the West Cork Co-ops back in 2011. So it's a 250-acre farm, so it's big. Again, for context, the standard kind of average farm is about 90 cows on a 100-acre platform. So this is a big farm, which makes it more challenging. And 250 crossbred cows on it. I mentioned it was set up in 2011. So I suppose back then the ambition was, it was a joint program with Teagasc to demonstrate and the operation of a large-scale dairy unit on a grass-based low-input system. And I suppose then with this project back in 18-19, it's now pivoted towards a climate neutral ambition. There's a lot going on in this slide. I'm not going to get into it all, right? But it gives you a feel for, I suppose, the ambition, number one, but the absolute plethora of different technologies that we're looking at as part of the project. So it really is throwing the kitchen sink at realizing the ambition. So the methane pace is very, 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 very important to us. So, you know, just to give you a feel for that, we've at this stage through Teagasc and Moore Park, we've completed our third feed additive trial, and again, encouraging results coming from those. We're looking at stabilizing slurry. Really good work happening there. I suppose we're seeing a 75% methane abatement from slurry, which again is significant in a farm context. That's about 7-8% of the farm's emissions. So really good work happening there. Multi-species swards, a real success story in the project. Planted our first multi-species nearly 4 years ago now, and Kevin Ahern, the farm manager, he's gone on since to plant 4 further fields. So 10% of the farm now is under multi-species cover. That's very significant because multi-species, requires approximately a quarter of the chemical nitrogen of a standard ryegrass sward. So very significant in terms of emissions, but also farmer's pocket. And I could go on, and I haven't got time, I suppose, to get into every aspect of this, but you can see, I suppose, the schematic on the right shows you the ambition. The animal and manure emissions, which is dominated by methane, is over half the pie. And we're pretty much on target to realise that. The land, soil and import emissions, you can see there, I suppose, again, it's significant. It's almost a third of the pie. And I think we're making good progress there. And I suppose the off-farm displacement emissions, two major, I suppose, contributors there. One is carbon sequestration. And again, we're seeing encouraging results as to what the farm is sequestering from the atmosphere. And the second piece then is grass biorefining. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time in this. I've got a slide coming up on it, and you can see that there in the bottom left-hand corner. And grass biorefining is significant. I might just move on to the next slide, but you can see that, I suppose, that just before I do, the bottom right-hand corner shows you the actual journey, I suppose, in terms of emissions abatement. And like I said, the plan is to be climate neutral by 2027. We'll never get to absolute zero, because the farm will have some level of emissions, and I suppose like that last kind of 20%, the plan is that'll be displaced by sequestration and grass biorefining. So just going to move on to grass biorefining, and I'm going to show you this slide. So this was a project that we were involved with back in 18-19. It was led by James Gaffey in MTU. So the machine you look at there is a mobile grass biorefinery that came from Grassa in the Netherlands. That's got a capacity to convert grass to 2 tons per hour. And effectively what's happening with biorefining is grass is presented to that machine. It's pressed, so all of the liquid is effectively squeezed out of the grass. You're left with that dry fraction you can see there at the foreground. That's called press cake. That's ensoiled, and that's then kept as a winter feed for your cattle. So I suppose as opposed to AD, where all the grass goes into the digester, you still have this fraction left as a winter feed. And then within the liquid fraction, you've got 3 separate co-products. One is a protein concentrate. It's got a similar profile to soya. And we've done trials in this, and it's a very suitable feed for monogastrics. And again, very encouraging results with that. There's a fructooligosaccharides, that's a sugar fraction, which is quite small. But again, that's I suppose sought after nowadays, prebiotics are. And the last part then is grass whey, and that's either can be used as a biostimulant, but we're probably more interested in looking at it as a feedstock for AD. And again, we've done some work on that to show that it's actually, you know, a really good feedstock. So you're really seeing, I suppose, really good circular economy in action with this process. And just, I suppose, again, through the Farm Zero C project, you can see some of the, I suppose, the press cake being made. That piece there in the bottom middle is the protein fraction, and then you can see it then dried on the right hand side. And this was fed to pigs, and we got very good results from it. So that's biorefining. I'm just going to finish up for the last few minutes to show, I suppose, the circular economy at Carbery, because I think we've got and this goes back almost certainly over 40 years. There was great vision, I suppose, shown by the leadership there of the day. I suppose the process in Carbery is really, really good in terms of circular economy. So very briefly, I'm just going to explain, I suppose, what happens. So milk comes in from the farms at West Cork into the plant. The first piece, I suppose, is that the fat is siphoned off. That goes to Kerrygold Park for butter production. You're then left with effectively with the skim milk. That goes for cheese production. Approximately 10% of the original milk volume goes for cheese. And last year, the plant would have made about 65,000 tons of cheese. Doesn't stop there. So I suppose through ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, all the proteins are basically taken out of the resultant waste stream. And that's where we make our whey protein ingredients. So Isolec, Carbolec would be 2 of the big products that we make in Carbery. And that's, you know, again, really good valorization, value add coming into the space. It continues again. So what's left from that is whey permeate, and what's really left in that stream is lactose. So it's about 5% lactose, balances water. Back in the late 70s, the guys in Carbery were looking at what are we going to do with this stuff? We can't put it down the river because it's going to pollute. And I suppose they found a strain of yeast that, when propagated, actually acted on the sugar. And again, through that whole process and distillation, they're making alcohol, which is quite unique. And this is actually called the Carbery process. So the plant makes about 12 million litres of bioethanol annually, which is very interesting. Still continues. The stillage from the alcohol plant goes to an anaerobic digester, produces biogas that fulfills about 9% of the plant's steam requirements. And again, there's another effluent stream from that, which goes to our wastewater treatment plant. And through the DAF, we make about 16,000 tons of an organic sludge that's spread on land as a fertilizer, and the whole process starts again. So really good bioeconomy and circular economy in action. This is just a linear, I suppose, kind of infographic on all those streams I mentioned. And you can see there's a lot of valorization and value add going on, I suppose, right throughout the whole process. So it's very interesting. And I'm just going to wrap up here, I suppose, on the biorefinery Carbery, that alcohol plant, which is quite unique. So that's I suppose in European they referred to it as a biorefinery. I mentioned it started production in '78. The process was later adopted in New Zealand and Germany by Muller. And I suppose now I suppose historically we used to send the biofuel to the likes of Diageo for food and beverage use, but now increasingly we're sending it as a biofuel because it's got a very, very low footprint. It's actually regarded as an advanced biofuel. And if all of our bioethanol in Carbery was used as a biofuel, it would it would equate to 16,321 tons of CO2. So very significant, and it's playing a part, I suppose, in Ireland meeting its transport targets. And it's about 85% less carbon intensive than petrol. So to summarize, I suppose Tracy was asking me, what does the bioeconomy mean to Carbery? These are just a few points I put down. It certainly stimulates sustainable development and circularity. Big thing with us is that valorization, adding value. There's no doubt the bioeconomy does that. Adheres to zero waste principles. Definitely linked to efficiency and cost reductions. Plays a key role in decarbonising supply chains. And I think as well, it really empowers primary producers. That cooperative ethos, that cooperative movement definitely does empower our dairy farmers.